everyone. This is William Armstrong, and I'm going to talk about how to install Debian. In the Debian install, you'll be asked to select your keyboard language and your region language too for your country you live in. You'll be asked for the host name. You'll be asked for the domain name, but the domain name is optional. You select your mirror repository location, such as the country you're in that pertains to your country. You'll be asked to select the Debian Repository URL of choice from the install screen, such as deb.debian.org and many other repository links that the installer provides for you to select. The installer can use the mouse or keyboard, and it is going to download installer components from the internet down to your system locally. It'll ask your root password, but for the root password, you don't have to worry about putting in a root password. It's up to your decision whether you want to or not. Personally, I think it's a good idea for you to skip the root password just because the root password, it's useful for doing system administrative tasks, but Debian says set up user and passwords. It says you need to set a password for root the system administrator account. A malicious or unqualified user with root access can have disastrous results, so should you take care to choose a root password, that is not easy to guess. It should be a word found. It should not be a word found in dictionaries or a word that could be easily associated with you. A good password will contain a mixture of letters, numbers, and punctuation. It should be changed at regular intervals. The root user should not have an empty password. If you leave this empty, the root account will be disabled, and the system's initial user account will be given the power to become root using the sudo command. Note that you won't be able to tell you the password as you type it. When you type in the root password, you got to type it twice into the two boxes at the same. Hit continue, and then once you click to continue, you put in your full name. It asks for your full name for the new user once. Then when you hit continue, it'll say the username for your account again to confirm. Then you put in your password at least twice to confirm and make sure it's typed correctly and change it at regular intervals. Select your time zone on the clock selection screen. Detect your disks. It'll want to partition your disks to the way you want. It'll either use guided or manual partitioning. Let me back up a bit. Okay, let's see. The options it gives you is use entire disk and set up LVM, logical volume management, or it'll say guided, use entire disk and set up encrypted logical volume management, or manual, or the guided, use entire disk. It asks you on the select disk to partition screen next. Then it'll say all files in one partition, recommended for new users, separate home partition, separate home, var, and temp partitions. It'll show the disk that is selected for partitioning. This is done in a VirtualBox virtual machine. It'll show your disk partitioning layout overview. It'll give you the options to configure guided partitioning, configure with software RAID, configure with the logical volume manager, or configure encrypted volumes and or configure iSCSI volumes. The iSCSI volume option is very rare. It's rarely used unless you have an iSCSI volume. Note that SCSI is pronounced SCUZZY, not SCSI. It'll show SCSI as in the hard drives, like the SATA drive, but it'll show ATA, the ATA drives rather. It'll show the drives, one or more drives. It'll show the drive SDA, SDB, SDC, SDE, FGH, IJK, LMNOP, QRS, TUV, WXYZ. It'll show multiple drive letter partitions in Linux. Just note that dev/SDX, X is where the drive letter would be, like SDA is the first drive on some computer systems, but multiple systems will have more. It'll show you the swap partition. It'll show you the primary root partition. You must have a root or swap partition or multiple partitions. Then it'll ask you to partition disks, right? Changing to disks on screen. with the yes or no, you hit continue. And then it shows the meter creating file system. It shows installing the base system, things like that. It's going to download the base packages to complete. It's going to do all the downloading and retrieving and unpacking and then verifying. It'll take a bit. Note that I recorded this with VirtualBox Screen Recorder, so the frames per second is set to 10 frames a second and the video quality is lower to reduce file size. It is also compressed further. In my OpenShot video editor on Linux, I'm using Mageia Linux to edit the video. I'm using Mageia Linux with OpenShot video editor installed, that I installed manually from the RPM repository Mageia 8. It is VirtualBox 6.1 or 6.2, but the Linux version of VirtualBox won't show the VirtualBox logo on boot up of each virtual machine. It'll show a blank screen showing Oracle VM VirtualBox. Press F12 to select boot device. It is updating the available list of packages. It's going to grab more packages off the repositories and unpack the base system packages first. Then you'll next be asked to install the kernel and then desktop environment through the software select screen of what desktop environment you want. Here it asks about the Debian popularity contest package. The package is opt-in or opt-out. You decide if you want to opt into the package usage survey or opt-out. You can select yes or no and then press continue, and then it'll automatically install and do a popcon config. You can also re-enable the popcon participation by doing the dpkg-reconfigure space popularity-contest package to re-enable it at any time. That's an option if you want to re-enable it if you choose to participate at a later point. The Debian popcon package automatically just determines what packages should go on the next distribution CD of Debian. Next, we're going to go to task cell, which will ask you what software you want. I'll read it. It says software selection. At the moment, only the core of the system is installed. To tune the system to your needs, you can choose install one or more of the following predefined collections of software. You can install GNOME desktop environment, XFCE, GNOME Flashback, KDE Plasma, Cinnamon, Mate, LXDE, LXQT. If you want to build a web server, you can select the web server option. If you want to build an SSH server, you can select SSH server or standard system utilities. If you want. LXQT is included in Debian 11, but previous versions of Debian did not ship the LXQT as a selectable option. I ended up picking LXDE by default. I moved all the way down to the LXDE option just to show a desktop. The others are trivial to install at any time later on, but LXDE is installed. I hit continue. Now it's going to download. It's going to retrieve file out of 1,100, which is a lot of packages. 1,100 or 1,100. 1,100 packages is going to get. It depends on the speed of your internet connection. If you have a gigabit per second, it won't take long. I'm using cable internet with 200 megabits down. Sometimes in cases 220 megabits down and 11 up. But if you have a slow connection, it'll take a little longer. If you have a fast connection, it won't take too long to download everything. And after a bit, it'll install LXDE in the selected packages. I'm going to skip forward in the video. Note that you won't really see me fast forwarding the video on my end because it won't show after it's been uploaded. I'm just watching this in VLC Media Player. While I show about the popularity contest package, I made a brief oops while I left that pop contest screen in again, and I went back to the task cell screen again. But I left those screens in intentionally to remind you that those are the important screens you can react to, like respond onto, and it asks you for it. It'll ask you to install the Grub bootloader. It'll then run a hardware detect, and then after that, it'll say installation complete, and then it wants you to boot into the new system rather than reinstarting the installation again. But this is William Armstrong signing out, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Note that when you install Debian, it's easy to do by looking at the screen. Debian 11 has added in a install prompt where it gives you installer with speech synthesis and things like that. And that's how it works. The Debian installer is easy to get by going to www.debian.org, debian.org, all that. So basically you can go to debian.org, download the Debian installer. Note that the Debian installer CD will detect what system architecture you're using. If you're using 64-bit, it'll bring you 64-bit. If you're using 32-bit, it'll bring you 32-bit. But if you're running on a 64-bit operating system such as Windows or Linux, the website will detect your browser user agent header string to see whether you're running x86 or 64-bit, or actually 32-bit or 64-bit rather. You can click download to do it. It gives you the option to install the testing distribution, which would be the next code name. The current distribution at the time of filming this video is Debian Bullseye. The next distribution in the testing branch of Debian is Debian Bookworm, Debian 12. Debian Bookworm or Debian 12 is announced to be in testing. Then after Debian Bookworm comes stable after Bullseye. Debian Trixie will be next. It's based on the Toy Story code names of each character, from being Debian Buzz, Bo, Ham, Slinky, Rex, Lenny, Wheezy, Stretch, Jesse, Buster, Bullseye, Bookworm, Trixie, things like that. Sarge, Slinky, things like that. But the Debian Unstable branch is known as Debian Sid, which Debian Unstable is based on the character Sid from Toy Story, who would always break toys. Sid is a Toy Story character that is very, very evil, and he's known to destroy toys instantly. Like, he'll grab toys, put them all together, change things, and break toys, while Debian Unstable Sid is based on the Sid character from Toy Story, the very first 1999 Toy Story. The next future versions of Debian are going to follow off of the Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4 code names. That's what it was likely going to be. And after Toy Story 4, code names have been used up. I wonder what code names Debian are going to go to later on in the future. Just give it a few more years down the road, and Debian will probably come up with a new code name after they use up all the Toy Story code names. One of the people who worked at Pixar worked at the Debian project, which is why Debian used Toy Story code names as a way to codename the distribution based off of Toy Story characters. And things like that. There are other installation guides out there, including Gentoo, Arch Linux, Mageia, Fedora, PC Linux OS, like other install guides that tell you how to install it online, or pictures, or video. But other than that, this is William Armstrong signing out, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. And be sure to back up important data on your Windows system or Linux system if you choose to install Debian over top your existing Linux system by erasing your current Linux system. Make sure you back up your data before you do it. If you have Windows, make sure you back up your data to a local external hard drive, something like that. Or if you're concerned about privacy, don't upload it. I repeat, if you're concerned about privacy, then don't upload it to the cloud. But this is William Armstrong signing out. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.